Welcome to Forensic Friday, where I tell you one true crime case that was solved using forensic science, all while doing, that's right, my makeup. Thank you guys so much for all of your love and support on the last video when I did my nails. You guys went crazy. You loved it so much, and I've gotten so much overwhelming support about that video that I'm definitely probably gonna make more in the future. Today's video will be featuring the Beauty Glaze color board palette from Amazon, and it just has 3 color boards. You have green, orange, blue, and purple. Most of the products that I'm using here today will be Amazon makeup products. I have the Perfect Lash combination from Yukon B. This is in, I don't know why I just brain farted and forgot. This is mascara. I'm also going to be using the Beauty Glaze matte liquid lipsticks. This is their Makeup Professional liquid lipsticks. This is supposed to be a dupe for the Kylie lip kits, which I've never tried, so that's interesting. And I'm also going to be using the Yukon B Longwear mattifying foundations. I have tried this before, and the coverage is full. Like when they say full coverage, this is full coverage. I don't know why. I feel like I always come to you guys on my period. What the heck? Please read the disclaimer. I am not a professional at anything that I'm doing here or talking about in this video today. I'm just the average girl at home like you, planning makeup and talking about true crime. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Donations are greatly appreciated and really helps to support this channel. And also a quick reminder that the comments section is a privilege. Okay? Don't fuck it up. I have rambled on enough. I can't even speak. I've rambled on enough. So let's get into today's case. Oh my God, it's gonna be a day. I can just feel it. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Detective Inspector Lucy will be in momentarily. She had to run a quick errand to get some evidence. This all takes place in 1992 in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, where a woman named Judy Blake Moilanan lived with her husband Bruce and her daughter Elise and their 4 dogs. Now, Judy was a nurse at the General Hospital of Marquette in Michigan, and Bruce was an insurance adjuster at the same hospital. So they worked together, which I don't know, that could be quite annoying for me. I worked with one of my boyfriends before, and it was, girl, I was about to tear his head off and like feed it to the cats, honestly. The 2 of them had been married for 14 years, in which Judy's parents initially did not approve of. They just really didn't like Bruce when they first met him. They thought that he was kind of a loudmouth, that he was rude and just obnoxious and annoying. But after a while, they all kind of came around. Hi, Detective Inspector Lucy has joined us. She has come back with the evidence that we needed for this case. So now we can resume. But yeah, eventually Judy's family did come around to Bruce. They started to like him. They started to get along, especially after they had their daughter Elise. That is when the family really started to get on board with him. Everyone seemed fine until November 29th, 1992. It was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and Judy, Bruce, and Elise had been visiting Judy's parents, the Blakes. This was one of the most popular days out of the year in their town. It was the last day of deer hunting season, and there was a huge party going on. Some members of the Blake family and Bruce decided to go out hunting for deer since it was the last day of the season. And Judy had her own plans. She decided to take her 4 dogs. They were Spring Spaniels, I think that's how you say it, Springer Spaniels. I'm not a dog expert. I'm not the dog whisperer. Don't ask me. So she took her 4 Springer Spaniels as well as her parents' dog, whose name was Streak. Now at this point, she is walking 5 dogs. That's a lot of dogs, but I mean, if you can walk them, walk them. She decided to take the dogs for a walk in the woods, which was right behind the Blake's family home, and it was off of Route 38. on y'all gonna kill me, Autonigon. I don't know why y'all be getting so upset anyway and getting attitudes about me mispronouncing like a city, as if it's like I'm mispronouncing your name. It's just a city. You live in the city. It's not like you don't own the city. It's not your name. Why you know what I mean? I don't know. Y'all be tripping out there, but I digress. So it was off of Route 38 in Ontonagon. After a couple of hours, Streak returned home alone without Judy. When 2.5 hours passed, the family began to wonder what happened to Judy, where she was, what was going on, but they thought that perhaps she may have just been looking for Streak, who had run off and obviously returned home. And when she didn't return home, Judy's mother and a neighbor went into the woods looking for her. They found the dogs by themselves, and not too far away from the dogs, they found Judy's lifeless body. It was about 40 feet away from the area where the dogs were, laying on her side, motionless. When they turned her on her back, they discovered that she had been shot in the chest. She had a bloody chest wound. When investigators arrived to the scene of the crime, they initially thought that Judy had been shot by an unknown hunter, because this was something that was popular at the time. I mean, not was it popular? I don't want to say the word popular, but it was happening a lot. Around this time, there was a lot of accidental deaths that were caused by careless hunters looking for deer. Judy was the fourth person to have supposedly died from this sort of hunting accident in Michigan. Shortly after Judy's death, friends and family members began to notice that Bruce was behaving rather odd. Bruce seemed to blame Judy for her own death, saying that she wasn't wearing an orange safety jacket like she should have been. I mean, that's beyond the point. Your wife is dead. Ugh, this man. He's already annoying me. He didn't appear to be in mourning, and within a couple of weeks of his wife's death, he was taking skiing trips. He was also hitting on Judy's friends. One woman that he took a particular interest in, her name was Gail Lempenin. She was 35 years old and married, and she was happily married at that, so she wasn't even paying him no mind. And she told police that he had actually started hitting on her before Gail died. She said that he was making all sorts of sexual advances towards her. He was telling her like, hey, do you want to move in with me? And she just hoped that if she ignored him, he would go away, like, you know, most people would, you know, most normal people, but this motherfucker ain't normal, we know that. After his wife died, Bruce was bragging to Gail that he was about to come into a bunch of money, girl. He was about to be rich. Thanks to Judy's life insurance policy, he was about to get $330,000. Now remember, this is back in 1992, so that's a lot of money. I mean, back then. Now that's not, that's like, you got something else, boo? Because that ain't gonna make it for me. I'm quite expensive. All right. I'm not bougie, but I'm expensive. He told her that it had some sort of double indemnity clause in the policy, and that was how he was able to get away with this amount. So basically, piggybacking off his wife's death, trying to make himself look like a baller, pretty much. I mean, these people had no shame, really. None, zero, zilch, nada. Now, Gail and Judy had met before, but they weren't close friends. They met like once or twice on occasion, and it was just kind of like a quick chat. So they weren't like super close or anything like that. So it really threw Gail off, and honestly, she thought it was bizarre that Bruce brought over a box of Judy's clothes after her death, and I guess as a keepsake, but her and Judy wasn't that close, so it really didn't make sense. However, Gail didn't want to be rude, so of course she took the box, and inside of the box she found a letter that was actually written to her from Gail, from the grave, girl. Like, this letter had some very strange things written in it. Now the letter was signed Judes, which was Judy's very personal nickname, and like, she would never call Judy that. She didn't even know that. It just didn't make sense because her and Judy were not on that sort of personal relationship where they would use nicknames. The letter basically read, "I'm having trouble in my marriage. Bruce and I are growing apart. We have our own things. Will you please help him find someone else?" And here's the just like the icing on the cake. It was signed, "P.S. Believe it or not, he's incredible in the sack." Yeah, okay. Now at the time, Gail didn't really know what to think about this. She was just like, what the heck? This is so weird that Judy would write a letter like this, and especially to me when I don't know her that well. And to be honest, she really didn't believe it. She was just like, what the hell is this? She didn't know what was going on, but she wasn't buying it. And over the months, Bruce would become more and more, intense with her about his advances. He would start to call and visit her at multiple times a day. To put it lightly, he was stalking her at this point. Investigators decided to take a closer look into Bruce. They brought in a forensic document examiner to compare Judy's handwriting to the handwriting on the letter. The forensic examiner noticed that the handwriting was very deliberate and slow, which was an indication that the letter could have been forged. And there were some inconsistencies in Judy's known handwriting samples. They felt that it lacked all the individual style and habit of Judy's known handwriting. The strokes and the way her letters were formed did not match. Forensic document examiners concluded that the letter was forgery. They also found that the letter had leftover indentations on the page, as if someone had traced on top of it from another page. Now, they found this out by performing a test for electric charge. When writing on a piece of notebook paper, the page underneath receives indentations and holds more electrical charge than the other paper fibers. To test this, the forensic examiner placed a thin piece of plastic mylar over the letter. Then they used an electrical wand to create an electric static charge. After that, they sprinkled toner over the top of the mylar surface. The area with the greatest charge will draw the black powder to that area, producing a visible image. The test revealed that someone had practiced writing a letter earlier before this one. Next, they compared the letter to Bruce's known handwriting samples, and not a surprise, it was a match. And they concluded that Bruce did in fact write the letter. With further investigation, police discovered that Judy had had an accident just a year earlier. She had been standing outside of her home when a large brick fell from the roof and hit her in the head. Now, at this time, Bruce was actually on the roof repairing it. Luckily, Judy would survive that accident, but it wasn't too long before another mysterious accident would occur. This time, a fire broke out at the Moilanen's home while Judy was home alone asleep. She was able to wake up in enough time and call the fire department. It didn't take investigators long to realize that something was up and that Judy's death was no accident. Bruce supposedly had an alibi the day of Judy's death, but a witness reported seeing him alone hunting that day, which contradicted his alibi. And after interviewing everyone who would have and could have possibly seen Bruce that day, police could not find anyone who had actually been with him during this time. Police were still missing a viable piece of evidence: the bullet. Now, the bullet was somewhere out there in the woods, but police could not find it. However, they did find something else not too far from Judy's body. It was about 40 feet away. They found what appeared to be a scrape mark on a tree, and I know what you're thinking, what does this have to do with anything? They're in the middle of the woods, of course, a scrape mark on the tree. Forensic scientists applied a chemical called sodium rhodizonate. This chemical turns purple when in the presence of lead. And what do you know? The mark turned purple, testing positive for lead. This meant that it was in fact hit by a bullet. So police brought out metal detectors and they were searching the entire grounds looking for this missing bullet, but nothing turned up. I just realized I completely forgot to use the Amazon foundation and I used my Fenty Beauty one. So I'm so sorry, but I will use this in the next video. So at this point, police were racing against the weather because it was obviously winter and it was starting to snow a lot. And so they decided they had to figure out something quick. They decided to try a different angle using a slingshot to recreate the trajectory of the bullet. They wanted to get a more precise idea of where the bullet had landed. This will cut down a lot of unnecessary area that they would have to cover. Now it's time to go into the pellets. But anyway, back to the story. Because they knew where Judy was hit and the mark on the tree, they were able to shoot the marbles at the same angle as the fatal bullet. The marbles ricocheted off the tree and landed about 80 feet away, and that is where they found the bullet. So they sent the bullet to a firearms examiner. They wanted to find out if this bullet was the same bullet that killed Judy Moilanan. While testing, they found that the bullet had been smashed. It was like smashed in a way where the top part obviously was smashed. It hit something, but the top part kind of exploded and it was more of looking kind of like a mushroom. They found pieces of fibers and other materials on the inside of the bullet. The first thing that they found inside of the bullet was wood fibers. Now these fibers matched the same wood from the tree that had the scrape on it. The second thing they found, was a small piece of pink fiber that matched the sweater that Judy had been found in. They also found a black fiber and traces of a feather fragment, which was consistent with the black jacket she was wearing and the lining of that jacket. It was a down jacket, so the linings were feather material. From this, forensic scientists were able to conclude that this was in fact the bullet that killed Judy Moilanan. Police were able to identify at least 4 different manufacturers of this type of gun that would have shot that type of bullet, if that makes sense. I don't know what I just said, but I hope it makes sense. Pretty much, they figured out 4 different types of weapons that would have shot this type of bullet, and they were a .38 caliber rifle. And when asked, Bruce denied owning any of these types of rifles. But police wasn't buying it, and they started pulling the Moilanans' bank records. They found out that the Moilanans had recently taken a loan out. Is it taken or tooken? I know somebody's gonna correct me in the comments for my vocabulary. And they used Bruce's gun collection as collateral. And on the list was a gun consistent with the type of gun that would have fired that fatal shot, which Bruce had not disclosed to police. Police believe the motive for Judy's murder was that Bruce simply wanted to be with Gail and he needed Judy out of the way. He was tired of being with her. And with the money from the insurance, he would have enough to start a brand new life, although Gail was happily married in her own life. When confronted with the evidence, Bruce was distraught. Police told him that Gail wanted nothing to do with him and that she was working with them. She never believed him anyway, and she didn't want to have anything to do with him. Hearing that Gail did not want anything to do with him seriously crushed his ego, and he confessed, telling police that he killed Judy because Judy was annoying. She was a tyrant, as he would describe her, at work, and she was a tyrant at home, and she did not know how to cook very well, which resulted in him always having to cook. And he did not want to be married to her anymore, but he also didn't want to get a divorce. So he just decided to kill her. I mean, Is that what we're doing nowadays? I don't know. When police asked why he didn't just get a divorce, he said because Judy would take half of everything and he did not want to give her anything, you guys. What in hell's kitchen did I create today? He also had the audacity to correct the medical report, telling them that they had gotten it wrong. The medical report stated that Judy had been shot on the left side, and he told them that she had actually been shot on the right side and the bullet exited on the left. I feel like this was just part of his narcissism, him trying to prove how much smarter he was just because he felt he was smarter and he could outsmart everyone. It's like the equivalent of him writing that crap in the letter about how he had a big wee-wee. Obviously, the information he told the police about the way that Judy had been shot was something only the killer would know. Despite his confession, he pleaded not guilty at trial, giving some lame excuse about him being coerced or something like that into confession. However, the forensic evidence was too strong and it did not take the jury long to come to a decision. Oh my god, this smells very particularly like Tootsie Rolls and it's making me want some Tootsie Rolls. Like, I'm seriously want some Tootsie Rolls right now. I'm about to eat this. I really am about to eat it. No, I'm not gonna eat it, but I want some Tootsie Rolls for sure. Thanks to forensic science and some good police work, Bruce Moilanen was convicted of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. What did you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like videos like these, I'll leave them linked on the screen right here or right here. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Also share because it really helps me out. And I'll see you guys next week with another Forensic Friday episode. Bye!